Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan. And DigitalOcean. Go to digitalocean.com and use the promo code Here's the Thing, all one word like you're slurring it, and spin up your own Linux rig for free. And Linux Academy. Go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged and invest in your mind while saving some money. Welcome to the Linux Action Show, episode 422. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hey there, Noah. Good morning to you. Guess what? Big show, 422. It's finally answering one of the most common questions we've gotten in terms of hardware reviews into this show. How come you guys don't talk more about Thinkpad hardware? So this week, we're reviewing the X260, a commonly requested device right here on this show. It's a stacked laptop that often gets repurposed to run Linux, so we'll tell you how well it does that job, what it's like to use it, and then at the end of the show, to keep the spirit rolling, we overdid it last week. We had a plan B just in case some of our hardware didn't arrive, and we ended up with an extra classic laptop that runs Linux like a champ. No, what's the details? It's a T41, right?
T41 Thinkpad is one of the original from IBM, and it's a great laptop. And the thing is, if you know how to set it up correctly, which Linux users do, you can actually drag a lot of life out of that thing. And I actually was banging around on it for a couple of days, and if I can get my work done on it, somebody else can too. We're going to give it away.
We're going to give it away. We're going to give it away towards the end of the show. Before all of that, too. I know. We're awesome. We get to look at us. We're so great. Pat ourselves on the back. Pat. No, then in the news segment, we're going to talk about Nextcloud 9 and some big stuff around that. And then we'll break down snap packages, app images, Flatpaks. What's going on here? Is there really a new holy war? The universal software installer that's going to be universal once we finally pick one? All of this, we'll explain it in the news segment. But before all of that, Noah, do you know what we've got?
We got the picks.
We've got the picks. So check this thing out. The ASM series automatic scrap monitoring system runs Linux. And I'm going to show you some pictures, Noah, and I want to see if you can guess what the automatic scrap monitoring system does that's so important. And I'll see if you can find the Linux, too. So this was sent in by Behemoth to the show, and he noticed this looked like a nice touch interface. You see where it says the system is ready to scan. And then on the next image, he was able to get to a terminal, and you see he's got, he brings up the uname-a command there with kernel Linux kernel 3.2.0. Ubuntu 64-bit, and if we tab over one more, you can see there's an XFCE desktop with some icons on there. So Noah,
the fact that he was able to get all of this on a touchscreen is actually pretty impressive to me. So let's not just glance right over that. I mean, this guy went to some work.
I think the device ships with Linux on it with this desktop just running. I don't know how he dropped down to it though.
How do you get to the? So what I'm saying is, how do you get to the desktop on a touch device? It probably is designed to stay on the touch thing.
So do you have a guess as to what the ASM scrap monitoring system monitors for?
If I have to guess, is it some sort of like a recycling thing? You bring the recycling in and then it somehow log it in as this is aluminum, this is
That's
paper,
good. That's a good guess. That's a good guess. I went to the docks, Noah. I went to the docks. The ASM radiation detection system. It's a radiation detection system, monitors a variety of vehicles and undesirable sources of radiation commonly found in scrap metal and rejects them before they can cause harm to people, property, or product. And it runs Linux. What's kind of funny too is if you look, they've recreated like an old LCD-like screen. So this box right here is a color LCD touchscreen where they have put a green, like old-style, fake, like low-res LCD monitor in there. And this is kind of a weird way to design it. So that's pretty cool. A radiation detector from Thermo Scientific that runs Linux. Could you imagine that?
Well, they previously tried to run it on Windows, but then Windows 7 upgraded to Windows 10, and it was missing nuclear things. Bombs were like getting through, and they're like, well, screw this, we got to go to Linux.
Hey, happy Father's Day to you, by the way.
Thanks. Happy Father's Day to you, too.
Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, too. So, legitimately, just a quick aside while we're talking about radiation detection, I was sharing the story on the pre-show. I guess this is true. You can look it up. If you want to make like a super sensitive radiation detector, do you know where you have to get the metal from to build that? Like there's a specific source we go to get very, very specific metal to build.
I make mine out of unobtainium.
Oh, good. Yeah, then you could drill to the bottom of the earth. You're close. They have to mine it from pre-World War II ships. Like before we ever dropped the atomic bomb or did any nuke testing, because we raised the the average radiation level in the entire Earth. And so when you want to get metals that haven't been pre-tainted, you go to the bottom of the ocean where these World War I steel ships are all wrecked. It's kind of amazing. And makes you wonder what happens when we run out of steel down there. It's true fact. A little bit of trivia right here for you on the Linux Action Show.
Wow.
Not really related to Linux, though, but it is pretty cool. I'll tell you what is related to Linux. Our first sponsor, DigitalOcean. Use the promo code, here's the thing, all one word, like you're slurring it, to get a $10 credit. Then you spin up a Linux rig on demand in less than 55 seconds. They have a KVM for the virtualizer sitting on top of Linux servers with SSDs for the disk, Tier 1 connections at their data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Germany, Toronto, and a brand new one in India. And they have a great interface that's super intuitive for beginners or power users. And if you use our promo code, here's the thing, you can try out that $5 rig 2 months for free, or use their hourly pricing. Just try something out for a bit, and then just put it in production when you're ready. They have a great UI. I mean, this thing is super nice, but one of the things we've moved over to using a lot more of now is their API. Really, for a lot of the common day, everyday tasks, I don't really need to go to a web page. And there's a lot of ways you can interact with DigitalOcean using their pre-built API yourself, taking advantage of applications written around it, and then you just drop that in, either if it's a applet for your desktop, or if it's an Android app or an iOS app on your phone, or if it's a IRC chatbot. Like, there's all different ways you can use this API to turn machines on and off. The reason why I mention this is one of the things we've done at JB is we have decided to start using some more of the powerful droplets to do offsite encoding and rendering for some of our live streams. Now, these just inherently are more expensive rigs because they have more processing cores. But we don't need these computers running, these servers running when we're not live. We can shut them down because we don't require that processing power. So we use that API to turn them on and off. So a lot of times we talk about the pricing of DigitalOcean in terms of monthly pricing, $5 a month. And you use our promo code, here's the thing, you get a $10 credit, 2 months for free. But in reality, I have started to transition more to really thinking about DigitalOcean as an hourly thing. Things I turn on and off. Infrastructure you just spin up. And then I start thinking, I've got a data center up in the cloud that I just spin up extra capacity when I need it and spin it down like a boss. It's actually pretty cool. So that's where here's the thing could actually really stretch it out. Another example where you could, using an Android app, and you want to, say, build a Minecraft server or a Mumble server, you could turn it on using your phone or your desktop applet, run it for a while, have a nice, powerful Minecraft server, and when you're not playing Minecraft, turn it off.
You know, the other nice thing, too, is I don't know if you've played with the imaging at all, but you're able to boot a server up, configure it exactly the way you want it, package it into an image, and then email that image to another person. And that person can then take that image and spit it back up onto a droplet. And it serves as kind of like a pre-configured. In fact, I just helped a guy do this the other day. He was in the chat room, and he was asking about how I had set a particular server up. And I said, yeah, I can show you how I did that. And so he goes, any chance you just strip your stuff out and give me a copy of the droplet? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So we just packaged all that up and emailed him the image, and then he pulled it up on his DigitalOcean account, and boom, he had the same server.
Very nice. That's very nice. DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code, here's the thing, to support the show and give yourself a credit. Thank you, DigitalOcean. And by the way, they've really upgraded the team accounts. Well, this is like a whole, this is something you and I should probably do for a lot of
we
stuff.
Really should. I keep thinking about it, but I tried to, you have to use a different email address than your normal one. And I'm like, that was a point where I was like, off to figure it out.
I think, though, if we just sat down and did it, and then once we have it set up, the team accounts thing is pretty cool, and they have new documentation on that as well. So I got a pick that I think is really slick. You might like this one. It doesn't do your fancy cloud sync that you like. There's no proprietary lock-in service. I know how you like.
You know me in the cloud.
Yeah, you love that kind of stuff.
I love the cloud.
Unfortunately, you could probably roll your own solution, but this one is just writing files to a disk. So brace yourself, okay? It's called Task Warrior, and it's a free open source software that manages your to-do list from the command line. Huh?
What?
Yeah, a to-do list manager from the command line. How about that? It's unobtrusive. It's super easy. It's got a really nice, simple syntax you can use to just say, like, task, this, that. I'll tell you more here about it in a sec. And it's... Think of this as, like, a task engine. And while, yes, you could communicate with this task engine right on your command line. Pull down your pull-down terminal, task, blah, 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 blah. However, like all good open source projects, whenever you have a really good tool on the command line, lots of ways spring up to interact with this graphically. So I will present you a couple of them. PTask, which is a GTK plus graphical user interface for managing these. So now you have task management on the command line, or you launch the GUI, you also have GUI management. You can use both. This is kind of handy. But I take you one step further. How about an ncurses wrapper that gives you an entire ncurses interface on the command line for your command line tool? Task Warrior is cool, but it goes a step further. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you the total ninja kick drop right here. Task Whisper, an extension for GNOME that puts your task right in GNOME. And for those of you watching the video, you can see this is actually a very nice extension. And again, works with the command line tool, so all this information is available on the command line. You could put it like in a sync thing folder or a Dropbox, I suppose. But look at that. You got active completed, you got flags, different status, different color labels. You can expand it out right there in the GNOME drop-down menu. Are you digging that at all, Noah?
Yeah, no, so a couple of things come to mind. First of all, I was using Chris's laptop the other day when we were in his RV, and like it dawns on me like how different we are as computer users, because like every extension known to man is installed on his desktop.
That is not true.
Every extension known to man. And I am the exact opposite. I'm like, what's the minimum amount of things I could install and get my work done? And like, I'm like, what's this? He's like, oh, that's a widget to do this, and that's the thing to do that. No, if you want to know,
that's only partially true. That is. I've been whittling it down.
I'm not. I'm actually being very, very nice to you. There's a lot more things I'm not. But so the other thing that comes to mind is with this particular design. What I would do if I wanted to cloudify it, I'll put my nerd pants on, and they would spin up a DigitalOcean, drop it, and then create a screen session, and then I could run this task at CLI in the screen session. That would be like cloudifying. That'd be cloudifying the CLI.
You could. You totally could. I just think this is. I just want to be able to come on Linux. The chat room, not so good, not so into it. But I think command line task management is baller. So there you go. Task Warrior is the command line component, and then you got PTask, you got Task N, and the other task thing, which is the GNOME extension. If you hate it, that's fine. But if the idea of command line task management excites you, then you can go check it out. Otherwise, this might be for you. If you're like Noah.
The reason the chat room isn't into it is because they are not. They have never been forced to live in the terminal for their jobs. And because if you have, the more things that you can get done from the terminal, if you have to bang something out real quick, the better.
Also,
and it is the common denominator.
For me, the more jobs I can put in my drop-down terminal.
Yes.
Because drop-down terminal is always with me on whatever desktop I'm on, and drop-down terminal is a tilde away. That's what I map tilde, so I don't have to press any other modifiers. Just boom, 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 boom. Boom. Okay, so if you're like Noah and you're not into the cloud, you might be a little skeptical of all of the magic that machine learning and deep learning promise to bring us.
Derp learning.
I let it slip on one of our recent episodes that I think of it as derp learning, and then I love that idea so much. I think somebody in the audience was, or at least a few folks resonated with the audience, because like Pong Funch here created a derp learning browser extension, much like Cloud to Butt extension. This is Deep to Derp browser extension. So anywhere where you see deep learning on the web will now be converted to derp learning. Nice free open source browser extension for Chromium and Chrome. There you go. That is our open source spotlight right there. Derp learning. Come on, Noah, are you going to do it? No. You combine this with Cloud to Butt and derp learning.
I have not seen, up until I had not even heard of the term. Don't you remember how confused I was at that episode? Like, you go back, it's like Noah's wandering around in a zoo and doesn't know his way out. That's how confused I was. This is, I have never heard of deep learning prior to doing it on the episode.
It's a legitimate thing. It is
run into it.
I think you're about to. I think it's going to be the big buzz, because it's like the ultimate services lock-in.
Well, coming full circle, Chris, I don't have an extension for everything.
Okay, you got me there.
I don't need an extension for this.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, all right. I might have an extension problem. It's just, I like all the things. Okay.
I know.
Why do they make an extension system if I can't have all the things? I'm not really an extension crazy person.
Things are popping up, windows are flashing around, drop things are coming down, text is flashing. I'm like, does that mean that I'm on the internet? He's like, no, that means that, what did it mean? The thing that counts down and then it like does something? And I can't even tell what's going on in your computer anymore. I'm like, it's giving me a millisecond response time.
You're talking about my ping time indicator, which is like one of the most useful extensions ever, dude. It's like so in my GNOME menu bar, I have the ping time indicator, which just gives me an immediate report back. So right now, right now it's excessively high. Right now it's 32 milliseconds to ping Googs, which is usually for me it's around 8. So it's like I'm surprised we're not dropping the stream right now. And I find that. But see, during live shows, people look over there. And then the other thing I like is Bitcoin indicator. I know when to sell it all. That's nice.
Yeah.
Too.
So what you're saying is, like, the 1,000 times a week, I'm like, Bitcoin's up to this now.
I know.
You're
Yeah.
like, I already know that.
I usually have an eye on it. Yeah. So it's my ping time to Google's DNS. You ping whatever makes sense to you. It doesn't really matter what it is as long as I know what's baseline for it to be normal and what's baseline for it to be odd. And so a 34 millisecond ping time right now is extremely high. And usually that's when I know something's about to go down. Hey, speaking of extensions and badges, how about stickers? JupiterBroadcasting.com/stickers. We decided to put up a stickers page if you guys want to buy like the last logo or Unplugged. These are nice vinyl stickers. The Linux Action Show one is round and cut, so it's a round cut, goes nice on your laptop. Also, the TechSnap logo is a nice cut too. If you want my face, there's the Tech Talk Today. If you want to support the BSD Now and sport the BSD Now logo, or just a JB logo, which the JB one goes nice on the back of like a cell phone case.
Actually, I put the JB one like diagonally on the corner of my laptop.
Yeah, nice.
And then I put the Linux Action Show, the colorful one, right in the center.
Personally, that's
what I think looks the best.
I really like the last sticker. I really like our logo there. So the chat room's asking, why is it $4.01? Well, so two things. To try to make like $1 profit on these, Angela's going to hand stuff these and mail them herself. And so if you want a couple, probably save her the trouble, order a couple at a time, so that way she doesn't have to do a whole bunch of envelopes, but whatever, you do what you do. And the price, $4.01, is because I think the stickers cost us like almost $3, and then the 1 cent is so that way we can track it to see if this is actually something you guys like in a report, just really easily. And if it's something that people seem to be interested in, then we will actually put more time into stickers. Not that every sticker we have is a nice vinyl sticks well sticker, but we could do more with them.
And really importantly, because this is huge for your stickers as compared to the ones that you get at conferences, and I know because I have both, they don't leave residue. So if you peel it off your computer, it will come all the way off, and it doesn't matter how long they've been on there. You can peel those stickers off, and they don't leave like
that's nice.
They don't split and then leave like the goo on there, and then the sticker part comes off. That doesn't happen on yours.
Yeah, so it's JupiterBroadcasting.com/stickers if you want to grab one for any of the shows there, and that's just a lot of people like to put them on the laptops and stuff or whatever, and I do so. Thought, well, if we want, and also we want to be able to grab stickers for ourselves pretty easily. Okay, so also all our past picks, JupiterBroadcasting.com/LAS picks. If you want to set up a new rig, we also have some great old Android picks there. They're still fine apps. But with all of that done, let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. Why don't you all go to last.ting.com, las.ting.com to save yourself some money, either on a new phone or on your Ting service if you bring a phone, and support the show. Last.ting.com. Ting's awesome and simple to understand. It's just you pay for what you use mobile. They don't do contracts. They don't do any of that kind of crazy stuff. It's just your minutes, your messages, and your megabytes. $6 from the line, plus Uncle Sam's sneaky take, and that's all you pay. And I love this because I'm able to bring devices on and off as we need them. Noah has seen me do this. And in fact, I kind of learned from Noah, really, where I'll have, with SIM cards being like $9, I'll have a device that maybe I want on for like 2-3 months for testing, just, as for the show. And when I'm done with it, I can turn that off. There's no contract I have to cancel. There's no agreement that I have to end, nothing like that. And if I have a device, I just bring it over. And if you go to last.ting.com, you'll get a $25 credit. There's a lot of different devices you can go with. I often will talk about their feature phones, which are like under $50, some of them, or just the SIM card. But I think this week, I'm gonna mention not only do they have the 5X, of course, and the One Plus, but and the Moto X Pure Edition. But also I really think if you're up for like a phone that's gonna last for a while, I think get one of the Nexuses. You can either get it from the Play Store. The 5X has been on sale this weekend, or you can get like the 6P. You can buy it directly. You can choose CDMA or GSM with these phones. You get a pure Android experience, which in reality that just means you don't get all that weird customizations that the OEMs put on there. But more importantly, at least for me, and this is why I'm really starting to take the position, I don't mind Android. What it is I mind all of the interference and anything that prevents me from getting security updates. I don't want the nagging feeling that my phone is a walking security nightmare. At the same time, I don't want to live in 1997. For me, it is extremely useful when I'm on a road trip to actually have a fast, modern, capable smartphone. It's kind of essential, and I just couldn't really square these two things. Does that mean I can only have an iPhone forever? I can only work with iOS because I can't stand security blocks from like Samsung and LG, even if they just delay it a little bit. I can't stand it. Mm-hmm. And with Ting and the Nexus devices, you know this, no, I'm preaching to the choir, nothing sits standing between you and those updates. I get my monthly updates directly, and I have moved SIMs between Nexus devices several times. I just pull it out, I put it in that Nexus device. When you brought back the Nexus 5, I put the SIM in there, I'm using it for a bit. And I got the 5X, I put the SIM in there, I'm using it. I really think the combination of these unlocked phones that you own outright, that you buy directly from Google, or Ting if you want, but I bought mine directly from Google. I put the Ting SIM card in there. I'm only paying for what I use. I can take advantage of all of the features of Android and get the security updates. Mm-hmm. And I could, if I need to, switch to GSM or CDMA at any time. Now, they got a lot of great devices, but I think the combination here, if you are a technically literate user who's aware of things like some of the security issues with the OEM platforms, but wants a good Android experience, going with something like the Moto X Pure Edition or one of the Nexus devices and putting it on the Ting network is a great combination. Now, of course, the iPhone and the feature phones are great too, but I think the combination of those is the best Android experience you can get. And you also get to support the show by going to last.ting.com.
You know another decent place to buy phones? You know where I bought, where I bought this?
eBay?
B&H Photo.
Oh, yeah.
They actually list like all of the frequencies, the GSM frequencies that it supports, and you can look on Ting and it'll tell you which bands you need to support to work on Ting. Well, or of course you can get because they're an MVNO T-Mobile, you can get their information as well. But then you can go into B&H and sort phones and say, I need this band, this band, this band, this band. And I found this particular phone, not only does it support all of the bands for Ting, but it also supports all of the bands worldwide. So when I travel internationally, I can just buy a SIM at a store and throw it in there and use my existing smartphone anywhere I am, anywhere in the world. And then I come back, put it back on Ting, and it works.
So Jason wrote in, he said, Ting saved the day. Hey, Chris and Noah, I have a story about Ting. I was at a convention last year when I saw a panel being presented by a great artist I knew. I wanted to show him the book I had been working on. While I had my laptop with me, I did not have Scribulus installed, or Scribus, and I couldn't show him the book. Also, I could not use the Wi-Fi in the hotel. Luckily, I could use the tethering on my mobile phone because I used Ting. I was able to download and install Scribus and then show him the book. He liked it, and I was proud. And that man died last week, and I'm thankful that there are services like Ting that can help you out in a pinch. That's a great point to mention, too, is they don't really have an agenda here. If you want to turn on hotspot or tethering, just turn it on. It's just your data. They're not going to. You don't have to have like a special shared data plan or a special authorization. You don't have to call in and ask permission to turn on tethering. If that feature is built into your phone, you just check the box, and that's one.
But if you have a 5-year-old and you don't want him tethering, you can go into the dashboard and turn off.
They have a great dashboard. That's a great point to mention as well. So we've been talking a lot about Nextcloud these days, and guess what? Nextcloud 9 already available, and the enterprise functionality is migrating over to open source. How about that for a fast turnaround there, Noah? Boomsies. Already shipped version 9, the next version. Trying to keep that momentum going. Got the rebranding in there. Got a new updated Android app.
Now, do you have an existing OwnCloud instance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, although I stopped using it about a month ago or two.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I did.
So I've gone back to OwnCloud like heavily, like to the point that like all my major files are in an OwnCloud instance, and I've not gotten bitten yet. But my dilemma is I understand that they are actually offering to allow you to upgrade straight from OwnCloud right into Nextcloud. So the transition is supposed to be super smooth. And I'm not super crazy about doing it, but I feel like I should just for show content.
Yeah, and Joss made an article about it that I have linked in the show notes if people want. Yeah, you should try it because I have it in there. This is kind of a good thing I like. I don't know, maybe this is one of the changes they were talking about. They've introduced a bug bounty program for Nextcloud. Now, how about this? This is great. And here's what's really nice about it. Some actual money's being talked about. In fact, they're going to reward up to $5,000 for qualifying vulnerabilities. And they've partnered with the HackerOne platform, which is a very, very fastly growing platform where different companies go to submit themselves to say, hey, you know, there's a ranking system here and a social network, and people come in and they identify themselves. Here's their credentials. There's a claiming system, so that way you can claim it, and they handle all of that. So this is actually a super smooth move because the HackerOne platform is already an existing established place you can go to with an existing community. In fact, they touch on that a little bit. There's 3,000 members over there who have reported over 24,000 bugs via the platform. So that's a great idea. And there's a quote where they say, we're thrilled to welcome Nextcloud to the HackerOne community and have the opportunity again to work with Lucas. Their experience with open source or running competitive bug bounty programs at scale is sure to benefit Nextcloud and the security for its customers, which I think is probably true. So here's where the payout. For a low vulnerability, you get $250. Like a limited disclosure of user data attacks involving a highly unlikely user interaction course. Limited disclosure of user data attacks that are easier to get to, like a cross-site scripting vulnerability, $750. Gain access to complete user data or other user data, $2,000. Gaining remote code execution on the server or as an unlogged in user, unauthenticated. If you can get code execution as an unauthenticated user, you get $5,000.
You know what's great about that is, in addition to actually solving problems, if they find them, even if they don't find problems, it is a constant PR thing for them. They can say, listen, I can guarantee you $2,000 worth that there's nobody out there that can find access to your data. Because if there was, we'd be paying them $2,000, and we are not paying them $2,000, or we'd be broke.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Like every year they're in business, it says something about their security, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think it's really nice to see them do that. All right, so this is so that was really one of the big stories this week. I think the other really big story that there was a couple of rumors that it was coming, but it hit pretty hard. That was Canonical announced that they have done some work to make snap packages install on pretty much everybody's distro of choice, including Arch and including OpenSUSE and including Fedora in Copper. And we talked about it on Linux Unplugged a little bit, but a lot has happened since that. And so I wanted to start out from the end user's perspective because Not in the Butt put it very well on our subreddit. He said, what am I missing as a user regarding the excitement over all these competing new universal packaging standards? So we have a couple of major competing standards right now. And I know a lot of you are thinking, this is nothing new. We've had universal software available on Linux. It's never taken off. I'm not even sure why we're even talking about this. I'll tell you this, and I tried to touch on this to a lot of people's dissatisfaction in my Ubuntu 16.04 review, where I said the state of software installation is not super good on Ubuntu. There's a couple of dynamics at play. We are coming from a background in Linux where we have used software repositories for a very long time now. And it was truly one of the most innovative things that Linux did. It was before anybody else had an app store. It was well before even mobile devices had an app store. And we had things like Synaptic. And we had early versions of the Ubuntu app store, which shipped before commercial platforms had them. And the idea that you could install an operating system and then all of the software you'd want for it would be automatically updated once it's installed via the repository. And the idea that there were these package maintainers that were curating the best of the packages and making sure it worked for the platform and then distributing that out to end users was truly one of Linux's most innovative things for software distribution. There are major downsides. Like last week's episode showed you and it's not a surprise to any of us, but when I tried to do anything software related on that 10-year-old installation on Ubuntu Edgy, or it was Dapper Drake, wasn't it? Nothing worked. Nothing worked.
I'll give you a case example where it would cost me money. I had a client a week ago that we were out there, and they because of the industry that they're in, they are required to run 1204, and so they have hundreds of 1204 machines in deployment, and a few of the people were using an OwnCloud instance, and the OwnCloud client is no longer available in the repository for 1204. So we just can't install the client. And if I had a deb that I would have saved to a USB drive or on a public network drive or something like that, we could have installed it. But because the repository is offline, it's, well, go screw yourself. I guess you don't get OwnCloud.
I think what we're coming up against is there is a certain class and category of software that doesn't really benefit from being part of a distribution repository. And then there are huge categories of software that do, like the base operating system, the GNU tools, all of the essential building blocks really make sense as part of a package managed system. The other big pressure we have right now that is only really apparent unless you talk to developers is they really want to be the ones to distribute software from their websites.
Right, because they lose control over their packages.
Good or bad, I think there's probably 30 reasons why that's bad. But from their perspective, they want to control distribution, they want to count download stats, and you could argue that there is a large momentum by end users to when they want to search the web and they just want to download something. You know, like when they get a new machine, they want to search the web and like just go to Google, type in Steam, click search, find a download link for Steam, and download it off the web. And then they want to double-click that package, and they want it to install and run. And that's just the momentum and expectation they have from two very large commercial platforms that literally have 1 billion users combined compared to Linux's small percentage of the market. So there's a lot of things that are putting pressure on the traditional software distribution. And then lastly, these same developers don't really want to bother packaging for all the different distributions. So they generally only target one distribution or don't bother at all. But the real big problem we're trying to solve is universal application compatibility. One file you download, you can install it on just about every single Linux distribution. And there's 3 solutions that actually have a lot of possibility. We're really on the precipice of something here. The one that we've been talking about the most is XDG App, now renamed to Flatpak. The other one we've been talking about the most is AppImage. There's already some open source projects that are packaging up, like OpenShot is packaged with AppImage. Flatpak is based around a GNOME 3.20 runtime environment that you can target, and it's a shared runtime environment, so you have it installed on a machine, and then Flatpaks are written towards that environment. You update one runtime, you update one environment, and everything gets updated that depends on that. And Flatpak was mostly developed by Red Hat and had probably the most mind share besides Snap packages, which until this week were really only designed to run on Ubuntu 16.04. That changed when different members, like I know, for example, Blackout24 in our chat room in the subreddit, and you probably see him all over Reddit. I believe he approached Canonical with some questions about trying to get Snapd working on Arch. And it was through working with people like Blackout24 and through that process that there was some momentum to get it working on these other distros. And then Canonical started looking at it and said, it looks like if we package it for these few distros, we'll have it run on everybody's. We'd have Snap packages running for every distribution. So they did that groundwork, and then they put it all together with a nice set of interviews with different news outlets and announced it to the world. So it's got to have people asking, like, what are the benefits and the downsides for average day users, like Not in the Butt right here on our subreddit did. And he wanted to know if there's like a lot of overhead with it. So we'll explain some of this. I will preface at this point that all of this technology is super new, and there is a lot of people going to their different camps and setting up the war posts. That said, we'll cover the news as it happened, and then we'll discuss it. So on June 17th, Ars Technica, a lot of others, like here's The Verge, app distribution for Linux just got way better. Everybody, here it comes. The snaps are here. The snaps are here. Ubuntu Snap package format now works on a bunch of other popular Linux distros, including Arch, Debian, Fedora, and the Ubuntu flavors. It's also coming to CentOS, Mint, OpenSUSE, and even OpenWRT. And so that was an example of some of the coverage. Here's another example. Ubuntu Snap package may be the future of software installation on every Linux PC. That's from PC World right there. So some really nice out-of-the-gate press. And as you would imagine, whenever there's a competing standard announced in the Linux community, there is a massive amount of blowback. And we'll cover some of that. But before we get there, I want to give you the perspective of a package maintainer. This is the package maintainer for Kurita. And he writes in here, here's my take, speaking as someone who's actually releasing software to end users for all these newfangled systems. He's looked at AppImage and Snappy and whatnot. The old RPM deb way of packaging is excellent for creating the base system. For software, where having the latest version doesn't matter that much for productivity, and things like that. It's a system that's been used for about 20 years and served us reasonably well. But if you're developing software for an end user that is regularly updated, where the latest version is important because it always has improvements to let the users do more work, it's a problem. It's not a ghastly drag having to actually make the packages if you're not part of the... It's a ghastly drag if you're not part of the distribution, and having to make packages for several distributions is not feasible for a small team. Snap turns out to be pretty easy to make and pretty easy to upload to Ubuntu's App Store, and pretty easy to find once it's there. Seeing that we're already more than 1,000 downloads after a few days seems to have some traction, too. And they do have an app store you could check out right now. It's called uappexplorer.com, and you can filter just based on snaps. Some of the snaps that are already available today are things like Nextcloud 9 and VLC. This Nextcloud 9 installation comes with the web server and all the stuff you need set up. There's Telegram is on here, HTOP, KeyPass, a lot of VLC. A lot of things are getting packaged up right now into snaps. There's a lot of things that are being created. Now you have to imagine, though, the folks behind Flatpak not so happy about that. So we go to the Fedora team and see some of the reaction. And this is where things get a little off the rails. Now this is posted to the Fedora mailing list. And the subject line is Fedora development of snap packages. And he writes, and by the way, this is Michael. He writes, what's going on is Canonical beat us to the market and development, and now their marketing folks have beat us in marketing too. We, of course, have zero plans to adopt Snappy in Fedora. And in fact, multiple Fedora developers are working on a competing solution called Flatpak. We have not considered and need to discuss whether to allow Snap Core package into Fedora proper. There is a strong argument to be made that we should accept all free software, but doing that could undercut our Flatpak effort. If popular upstreams start distributing snaps, then we'll probably have to support it, though. So in the mailing list, they're even talking about potentially blocking the core Snappy packages from Fedora because of competing reasons. Now, that was quickly dismissed in further mailing lists. But Noah and I, we're familiar with Adam. Adam is a Red Hat employee, and he, to his blog, sort of echoed some of this Fedora sentiment. He knows this is personal, and I like Adam, but he obviously has a bit of a dog in this hunt. And I want to break down some of this because I don't really know it's so early to pick a side on a particular standard. It seems, from our position, a little silly. But obviously the people that are writing the software very much consider their next universal installation package to be the best one. And they have different ideas and different core concepts. And so Adam writes here, he says, you may have read some stuff this week about application delivery mechanism called Snappy and how it's going to unite all distributions and kill apt and RPM. Okay, I have a couple of, first of all, the goal is not to kill apt and RPM. These things wouldn't even work without apt and RPM. But secondly, it's not Snappy. It's Snap packages. Snappy is a version of Ubuntu that can be atomically updated completely. That's Snappy. Snappy is a type of Ubuntu. These are Snap packages. He says, to put it diplomatically, this is a healing, steaming pile of bullshit. You may not be surprised to learn that said pile has been served by the Canonical Press Department. He goes on, the press release and the stories together give you the strong impression that this thing called Snappy, again, it's not called Snappy, is going to be the cross-distribution future of application delivery. And it's all ready for us to use today, and lots of major distributions are buying into it. He goes on to cite like how they kind of talk about this, and they do, Canonical does infer that the other distributions were involved in the porting of Snap packages, so he's right there. First, let's be clear, Snappy, again, it's not Snappy. That's like putting a big D at the end of system D. And it does kind of matter. When you're making a technical argument, it does kind of matter that you actually know the name of the thing you're arguing against. Not that he's wrong, but it does kind of matter. Like, the name matters. So let's be clear. He says, Snappy is a Canonical project. The press release was issued, I think, sort of as it came from sort of an independent or cross-vendor project. There's a Snapcraft.io site to back up that impression, but every Snappy committer is a Canonical employee, and contributions to Snappy, again, and Snapd, require signing the Canonical CLA. He's right there, too. It does require signing the CLA. The sum total of communication between Canonical and Fedora before this press release was they mailed us asking about the process of packaging Snappy for Fedora, and we told them about the main packaging process and Copper. They certainly didn't, in any way or form, tell Fedora that they were going to send out a press release strongly implying that Fedora, along with every other distro in the world, was a happy traveler on the Snappy bandwagon. There are more than 20 other committers to Flatpak, most of whom are not Red Hat employees. And Flatpak is not under a CLA. Now, apparently, Adam was not aware of AppImage either. But the headlines and some of this stuff, it's funny how we go there. Like Adam's post, the headline of Adam's post was, on Snappy and Flatpak, business as usual in the canonical propaganda department. Is it propaganda if one distribution works on something and then makes it available for all the other distros, and then does a big press release about that? I mean, that does. I don't know if that's. So when I go to the Flatpak site, I mean, because I feel like if you go by that logic, and I go to the Flatpak site and I go to flatpak.org, on flatpak.org it says the future of application distribution. The days of chasing multiple Linux distributions are over. Standalone apps for Linux are here. That feels like that could be considered propaganda to me because that implies that Ubuntu is in. I think it's egocentrism. It's predictable and a little unfortunate how we all have gone to our own sides already and are already fighting over this. Now, fundamentally, go ahead.
No.
Fundamentally, I think we're moving towards something that would be really good for Linux, despite some of the downsides to users downloading software directly from the web and installing it. And it does make Linux more of a common platform. It means that we could be entering a future where you release an application for Linux, and then anybody running the Linux desktop can run it. And I think for us that have been here for a long time, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. That doesn't seem like it's a game changer, and it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. I actually think there's enough motivation now around the Ubuntu platform and around getting things on Linux and Internet of Things devices. I actually think it is going to happen, and I think one of these is going to be the standard.
We do. If you've worked in Linux, especially if you worked on trying to convert people to Linux, then you're aware of inevitably the first problem that you run into, which is people say, well, how do I find the package for Linux? And then they go to the Google and they'll type in, I want to find Evernote for Linux. And then they look for a .tux or .lin to double click on and install their Linux package. And of course, we know that you need to look for a distribution specific package, which really makes every distribution almost like its own operating system. But let me tell you why I think that this is actually not as great of a thing as we're all making it out to be. So I actually talked to a couple developers this weekend about some of these things. And first of all, they agreed with what, the first part of what you said. They don't want to lose control over that packaging. They don't want to lose control over their software. And it's difficult for them to get newer versions if it's being controlled by a repository. But to make an example of why this isn't such a great thing, first of all, especially, so you're on Arch, right? Snap packages, to the best of my understanding, rely on AppArmor or SE Linux, neither of which come by default in Arch. So you're going to have, if that's going to be a thing that's going to be available on Arch, then you're going to have to make sure that you take responsibility for getting that security.
I don't know if that's actually true. So when I install Snap on Arch, it installs a companion package called Snap Deconfine, and I think that is the confinement aspect of Snap packages on Arch right now. Depending on the distro. There is, for some distros, there is no confinement currently with Snap packages. Now, that would seem to be a deterrent, or a bad, a negative to Snap packages. But
that's just one. I've got more.
But there is Snap package isolation, at least to my knowledge, absolutely, with the exception of what X can do, on Ubuntu 16.04 and on Arch. There is no isolation at the moment implemented in Flatpak. There's absolute support and intended planning. I have links and reference documentation in the show notes for this. But at the moment, Flatpak has no container, no isolation. And again, it's not about containers. People in the sub are like, oh, containers are the future. This is not about containers necessarily. Flatpaks, I mean, there is container technology used here to isolate the processes out to make them safe and secure. So there is that. And Snap packages mount as a file system inside an image file that is then closed, and those are contained separately. But anyways, go on, continue.
So let's take a look at this is the build for gedit, right? And the problem, if you look at it, and I'm not a developer, but having spoken to developers, it defines a dependency tree, you have a configure stage, and then it runs make. So it's a very simple, straightforward build structure. And essentially, the best of my understanding is you can copy and paste these things from one project to the other. And the problem is when you look at these universal builders, what you're going to find is that the developer has to be aware of the environment and the variables that they're building for. When you look at something like snap packages, or actually any of these universal installers, those developers are going to forego that, and they're going to develop for one system. And so if you look at this is a build for Atom. And there's not a build system there. They have completely forgone it, and thus it's a gigantic mess. And the problem is you will start to see a loss of functionality because a lot of the customization options that are available from the developers are not going to be taken into account when they build for this single one-time, one-use kind of a thing, and you wind up just kind of foregoing the build system altogether. And so I think that we need to approach this with a little bit of caution, and it's a great avenue, it's a great approach. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it, and I'm not saying that it isn't filling a huge hole in Linux, but I am saying that there are a number of very serious disadvantages that I don't think are being widely talked about.
Yeah.
And there are some advantages to having different distributions.
I don't think what you're describing are disadvantages. I think what you are describing are certain edge cases where they are disqualifiers for making them candidates for this type of packaging. I think what we're going to come to is a happy sort of balancing point where we'll decide, and it'll just be obvious at some point, these types of applications are distributed in this universal packaging format, and these types of applications are distributed via my package manager.
I think there's going to be a real temptation for developers to say, I'm not going to bother with packaging for that distribution and this one. I'll put it into a snap. We'll get some of the good defaults that most people use, and we'll send it. That's bad.
But how is that different? See, this is why I believe this is going to take off. Not necessarily disagreeing with some of the things you're saying. And I think sometimes when I do this, people think I'm like promoting one particular thing. I just see the inevitability of it. That's all. And so it just seems obvious to me what's going to happen, because all you have to do is look at Docker. Look at the history of Docker. What made Docker successful? Was it the idea and concept of a container? No. Containers and jails had been around for decades. It wasn't the core technology of Docker. It was, I could take this super complicated ass setup, this entire stack of this super crazy open source program, and maybe I'm a web developer, and I got a MacBook Pro, and I've got my little crappy macOS terminal open, and I've SSH'd into my real computer, which is my Linux box, but that's about as far as I know how to get. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm literally trying to describe what I picture to be a large majority of developers these days. Sorry, guys. I love you. And then they Docker deploy an image of their entire stack of software they need, and they jump in that Docker container, and they have at it. This is that same problem solved by universal software installations. For example, say tomorrow you and I got a wild hair that we wanted to try out the latest Plasma 5 desktop. Well, guess what? The Neon guys are working on packaging up the entire KDE desktop as a single snap or app image. I also happen to know there's other desktop environments that you and I use on a regular basis that are also in the process of snapping up the entire desktop environment. You download a snap package and you have that entire desktop environment installed in seconds. I'm not saying this is necessarily a great idea, but that taking something that used to be a very complicated process on Linux. Leo Laporte broke his Oryx when he tried to go to GNOME
within a couple of hours
from Unity, right? He broke it because it was a problem with LightDM and GDM. This is not something that average users have nailed. When they want to do complicated software installation and removal, in fact, Noah, I know several Linux users I've switched that their solution to managing software on Linux is to never uninstall anything ever. They will install software, but they will never, ever uninstall software.
Of course.
And these problems are solved by this universal package model. And one last thing, the other reason why I think it's inevitable is because a company like Canonical is savvy enough to already be out in the community and actively working with these killer apps to get them to start packaging up in snaps today. So they're already making the calls. And they're already, so in Adam's post, Adam's like, part of the reason he says he doesn't accept snap packages is because Canonical didn't do the proper thing. They didn't go to conferences for 2 years and talk to all of us and get all of us to switch from our thing that we invented to your thing that you invented. And because they didn't spend 2 years at conferences talking to us in person, I can't support this because they didn't follow the process. Well, maybe they're following a different process. Maybe they've created something like, hey, you know what? Even if they only kept it on Ubuntu, we're going to have some momentum here. Oh, we can make it for other distros too. Great. Now they've got the obvious path there. The development process doesn't seem like some sort of evil scheme. It seems like it's solving an obvious problem. It's already going to have a lot of momentum behind it. I think a lot of people end up using these, and I think what you're talking about there is going to be just disqualifiers. I think things like either Atom they'll clean it up and they'll make it easy to ship, or it'll just be something that doesn't ever ship as a snap package or an app image.
See, I think they'll all eventually ship as snap packages. I agree with you, and I also agree that it definitely fills a void. All I'm saying is that I think that we are going to see a compromise because developers aren't going to take the time. They're no longer going to take the time to put them in all the various places that we have them now. They'll just be available in this one little free container thing. And I think that if you want it after that, you'll end up having to compile from source.
I feel like this is not a super great argument because there is already so many variables when you're targeting the Linux desktop that the only way this works is if you custom build your application, what you're talking about. Like you're talking about turning on certain features to take advantage of a newer version of GTK or take advantage of GPU acceleration or whatever it might be that's
whatever it is that makes that application run more in tunely with Antergos as opposed to Ubuntu, which are wildly different animals. So to try and condense that down into a common denominator means that you essentially strip a lot of stuff out, right? Anything you
have at scale like Google Chrome or Firefox, they can't rely on that. They can't rely on some package maintainer that they don't even know the name of.
No, of course not. Of course not. And so it's better than nothing. But I'm just saying, like, it becomes almost too easy of an out for developers. So they're no longer considering all of the environmental variables. They're simply just saying we just build and push, build and push, build and push.
I think people that are least likely to benefit are users like me who are on a rolling release where I have an AUR. And I just pull from that all the time, and I don't have to worry about having a 3-year-old installation of Linux that doesn't have the newest XYZ. I think.
On the other hand,
I think guys like you.
On the other hand, I bet
CentOS
TeamViewer starts working if it's packaged as a snap.
Well, and honestly, we were talking about doing our Fedora review earlier today. And you're like, I don't know if we should do it because like it's going to be 2-3 weeks before I can install anything like Telegram on Fedora because I got to wait for all the repos to catch up and Mumble. And I'm like, yeah, or we could just install Fedora and then just install the Telegram snap and be done. Like it's already solving a problem on Fedora today, and that aspect of it is just that's you can't beat that.
Well, the other thing is if I could say, and I'm not trying to hate on these universal installers. In fact, if you go back and watch last, there's numerous times I've said we needed a universal installer, but I am simply trying to take the other side of it to show that there is another side of it. But if I had a website and I can say, go to this website and here's where you get all your software, just go to the website, you can download Skype and Telegram and Evernote and whatever else are all in this site here. That's really, really, really game-changing for the Linux desktop. Like, really changing.
I think the big problems we still have to face, my big questions around snap packages are what happens with the back end? Are they going to open that up? Will they be pressured to open that up? Or can we just do our own re-implementations of it? Because you can download snap packages and install them all independently of the Snap Store backend, but if you want them searchable and indexable and just be able to snap install command line kind of stuff, you got to have it in that back end. Well, Canonical has that closed up. They control that. That's an issue. I think the CLA is another issue. And I mean, what's it going to take? At what point
can we all work together?
At what point is Canonical going to go, geez, this CLA has just been a noose around our neck for a decade now. Let's get rid of this thing.
And what positive aspect has it brought?
Well, it gives them clear legal grounds to have
I know that.
a huge success.
Where has that been? Give me an example of where that's been hugely beneficial. Where has the millions of dollars been saved from legal battles from the project that would have sued them if they? Here's
the scenario. I'm going to tell you. Here's the scenario. And this is why I think they should just give up. The scenario is the Ubuntu phone goes gangbusters, becomes the number 3 platform in the world, literally has 500 million users, and they want to relicense all of that to protect themselves legally and to own that IP. They want to be able to have contributors send in patches, and then they want to be able to relicense it if they need to. They're not going to take away yours.
Where does it actually happen though?
That's my point. That's why I think they need to become. So it's so funny because they do work with the community. They are a community-oriented company. I mean, you look at the development of the Ubuntu phone platform. It's so integrated with the community. It so depends on the community, and yet this CLA is such an anti-community thing that it is the manifestation of the very fact that they just don't go all in. You can tell they can't go all in, and I think that's why the Linux community has such a negative reaction to that CLA, is because it's an indicator that you're not really going to go all in with us. Get in bed all the way and take your underwear off too. Let's do this thing. And Canonical's like, I'm a never nude. I like being in bed with you guys, but I'm not taking off my underwear. That's where Canonical's at right now, and we can all see it. We can all see they got this really tacky underwear on. And we're like, that's something that's sticking out.
Yeah, that's quite the analogy.
Now, Flatpaks, I don't necessarily think Flatpaks are perfect either, because first of all, Flatpaks are very, very structured around GNOME, which is not a winner for everybody, obviously. It is predominantly a Red Hat controlled project, although there's like, it's only like 75%. It's not 95% like Mark Shuttleworth said in interviews. And it's still very much predicated a lot around a repo. Like if you want to go download a piece of software right now, when you download that, it adds a repo and then pulls the file down. And that I think us Linux users prefer, but I think that's not actually. I don't think it's what the people creating software want, and they're going to be part of the people driving the decision here. And so,
the only way that would work is if it was some sort of a public thing. So, like if I maintain the widgets package, and I can go into the repo and put my version of the widgets package into the repo at any time I want. I log in, kind of like GitHub, and I push my new software changes up into the repo, and then all my users can pull it down. That could possibly work. But from my understanding, and it was Rottenkorps I was having this discussion with, he said that his biggest problem with repositories is he loses all control over his software, and there is a version that's over 2 years out of date in Debian right now, and there's nothing he can do about it.
Yeah. Well, and you also don't get like stats and stuff like that whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting debate. It's one of those that's very heated right now, and I know everybody just wants. You know what it is it's that it touches on that old nerve of, can't we all just work on one standard and not reinvent the wheel 13 times at once? But
the XKCD comic problem. There are 13 competing standards. Let's make a standard to standardize them all. Problem. There are now 14 competing standards.
Yeah, exactly. And we thought we were kind of getting there with Flatpak and AppImage and orbitals and all that stuff. However, like all competing technologies in the open source landscape, each one of them does have something unique about them that makes them competitive, and they're all worth considering on their face. And I think at this point, if you get lost in the weeds over how the PR was handled, instead of discussing the technological problems it's solving, you're talking about the wrong thing. And you need to refocus on the actual technology here. And second, I wouldn't get super hung up on high and mighty about any of these different software distributions' security at this point. None of them are complete. All of them are early. There's a lot still to be done. But if we roll up our sleeves, as it were, and start playing with these things, they do offer something. Imagine, if you will, even if it's only just ever Corita, your web browser, Telegram, and a handful of applications, and everything else comes from your package manager. That's the future I see.
Yeah, and the great thing, just to dovetail onto that, the great thing about that is if you have a company, and I've worked with them, you have these large companies that they poop out a Linux install like once every 5 years.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And so we have a particular piece of software working with a very large software vendor, and they support Linux, but their idea of supporting Linux is 10.04. We just released 10.04.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So if we can get a point where those people, I would love it if they would make a snap image, and then that way the image will run regardless of what operating, as the operating system advances. That's fine. They spit out their one image, and now we can shoehorn that into the latest version of Ubuntu. And my client that I was just talking about 12.04 probably wouldn't have that problem.
Yeah, I'm going to play with all of these more. I've got AppImage and Snapd installed on my machine. If you guys would like to know more about how these technologies work, like if you want us to do a deep dive, it's pretty fascinating stuff, really. Especially right now, Snapd is fun to play with just because there's a lot of cool Snap packages being created. All of it is interesting. And one of the things, by the way, Fedora, which the next Fedora release is next week if everything goes as planned, one of the features...
It will not.
Yeah, probably. One of the features hailed in the new Fedora is its Flatpak compatibility. So It's happening right now. So buckle up. All right, Noah, you ready to go talk about some hardware?
Let's talk about laptops.
Yeah. That's all the news for this week. Laptops seem to be blowing up these days, and I know a lot of you out there are always searching for the quote-unquote perfect Linux laptop. It's a topic we talk about from time to time, and you've wrote in and said, well, we'd love to hear your take on some of the Thinkpad lines. So we're going to be talking about the Thinkpad X260 today, Noah's take on it. And before we get there, I'm going to tell you about Linux Academy. Linux Academy is a great platform to learn more about the technologies around Linux and the core Linux technologies itself. Tirth, I saw him in the chat room this morning. He's doing what I love to do with Linux Academy. He's taking courseware even though he doesn't really need to, so that way he doesn't have the pressure on it. So he's just enjoying the hell out of it. Linux Academy is a great platform, though, if you're currently employed and just want to get your employer's attention, if you're trying to get more clients, trying to get in a new area, learn a new skill set, or just stay up to date, maybe even challenge yourself. They have 2,488 self-paced courses with videos and comprehensive study guides, audio you can download and listen to offline, scenario-based labs that put you in the middle of everyday common tasks, instructor mentoring that helps you on these really complicated topics, development environments like Python and Ruby and Android, and all of the essentials around Linux. They have availability planners, so you can tell it just how much time you have, and it automatically generates courseware around that for you, which is really nice when life gets busy, like on a Father's Day weekend. I think that's probably one of my favorite features. They have a new social card platform they're introducing. Not like Twitter cards, not like Google cards. These are like note-taking cards. It's Linux Academy, guys. You can fork the card stacks and make really great study cards. In fact, they're giving away a $200 Amazon gift card to some of the best stacks right now. This is a cool new feature they're rolling out all the time. The Linux Academy not only increases in content constantly, but also the platform gets better and better. That's just part of your investment. Go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged. We brought the Unplugged discount over to the Linux Action Show. You get a great deal for a great system. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. And if you're a team, check out some of their team features. Like if you're working at a company, it's a great way to keep the team up to date, or if you're moving over to a new technology. Also, something to consider is that you can choose your Linux distro. So if you need to study between distros or something like that, this is super nice. You go in there, you pick your distro, all the courseware automatically adjusts to match that distro's command structure, and the virtual machines that they spin up on demand that you can SSH into also match that distro. It's a kick-ass platform built by people super passionate about Linux, educators, and developers, and now it's stacked full of Jupiter Broadcasting members. What can't you love about that? The odds are in your favor at linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Thanks, guys. Okay, Noah, so it's funny because you can really tell when the audience is onto something. People are looking at a lot of different laptops these days, and we are constantly always looking for a great laptop to pass on. I have this 10-year-old laptop right here that I did yesterday, and back in the day, that would have been a heck of a laptop for it. And so you're always looking for a laptop that if you're going to make the investment, that sucker lasts for a long time.
Right.
And so that kind of takes out things like the Chromebooks and stuff like that.
So, and I divide laptops into three categories.
Yeah.
I divide laptops into, the first one is the inexpensive laptops,
Sure.
the cheap little Chromebooks, the Atom Power, the Celerons, they're under $300, right?
Yeah.
And the second class is like the Ultrabook, MacBook style things, the aluminum chassis, super nice build quality, really, really thin, has a lot of power under it, but it's almost like a glass sculpture. You want to be really careful. You don't want finger smudges on it. You don't want it to get scratched. You don't want to drop it. And then you got the ThinkPads, and these are like the workhorses, and they're very expensive and they're very powerful. But you eat off the top of them. You can put your Happy Meal on there and eat off the top because it doesn't matter.
They're definitely they have a very industrial look to them. I guess
very industrial
putting it
look
nicely.
and it's for people who want to get work done, and you can't really intermingle. The people who are interested in like the MacBook Ultrabook style things are not going to be happy with the ThinkPad, and people that want the workhorse of the ThinkPad don't want the delicate little prissy thing that is the MacBook, and both of those users don't want anything to do with cheap hardware, and the cheap hardware people aren't going to pay for either the expensive ones.
Okay, so
this is the third category. We've talked about the first two at reasonable length. We've never really talked about this third one.
All right. Well, I look forward to it, Noah. Noah heroically kicked the tires for us. Take it away, past Noah. Noah, from the past.
Sound. I'm no stranger to the Lenovo, formerly IBM ThinkPad series. Typically, though, I've always purchased ThinkPads used. I started with my very first one, a IBM ThinkPad 755C, upgraded to the 560E, eventually the 701C, and most recently, I've had the IBM ThinkPad T420, which I actually learned from a Linux convention, a couple different Linux conventions actually, that it's a very popular model to have. I bought it for $250 off of eBay. I always buy my ThinkPads used. In fact, I buy most of my laptops used because I really like the cost savings of buying a year or two old model. I find that I can get them for well under a couple $100, and I'm not paying for that essentially bragging rights. But recently, a couple of things have come together from my company side, as well as a couple of other variables that have required me to purchase a new computer. And so for the first time in my life, straight from Lenovo to me, all the way from China, I have my very first brand new Lenovo ThinkPad. This is an X260 series because, as those of you who know me know, that I really like small portable packages. So it's a 12.5-inch display, IPS display, 1080p with 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gig NVMe solid state drive. I'm not going to bore you with the unboxing this time because frankly nobody liked it last time, but I'm going to show you exactly why it is I decided to purchase this particular model and what it is I like about it. So I've just unboxed my IBM ThinkPad X260, and as any good Linux user does, it has never booted Windows. I powered it on, immediately pressed enter, stuck my USB key in the side, turned off secure boot, and booted straight into Ubuntu 16.04. Now this is where we have to stop and talk for a second. If you're expecting to purchase a computer out of the box, pull it out, and have Linux work automatically, there is no guarantee from Lenovo that you're going to be able to do that. You are taking a risk. And this computer cost me $1,600, and it came with no guarantee whatsoever that it would work with Ubuntu. And if it hadn't worked with Ubuntu, I would have gotten absolutely no support from Lenovo. You'd be totally on your own. So if you want a guarantee that something's going to work on Linux, I'd recommend going with something like System 76. All that said, turns out the Lenovo ThinkPad X260 actually does work flawlessly right out of the box with Ubuntu, save a couple problems with Ubuntu, which we'll get to in a second. Now, as mentioned on numerous other occasions, the 13-inch or 12.5-inch laptop is my wheelhouse. Things you'll notice right off the bat, as pointed out by Louis Rosman in his excellent ThinkPad review, they have removed the volume keys and mute keys that were up here, and they've also done something which I find particularly frustrating, and that is they double up the insert and end key. So you need to use the function key to access the end key or the insert key, depending on if you have the function locked or not. Now, if you lock the function key, this top row of keys will function as their media buttons rather than their F keys. That's not particularly desirable because I use programs like Quake that have the F12 key to bring down the terminal. And what I've chosen to do to get around this problem is I've simply reassigned Quake to the tilde key like Chris does, and that has seemed to work for me. The ThinkPads, of course, come with the track point, which I prefer to use as my mouse. You get dedicated buttons for the track point as well as a full-size click pad, which is one of those tilted click pads, so you can press anywhere on here to click the click pad. I don't prefer that, but it is an option for you. Walking around the computer, on the first side, we have the smart card reader, the full-size Ethernet jack 1 USB, and the SIM card slot, which allows me to connect any unlocked GSM WAN card that I've installed in here to any provider that provides GSM service. I'm, of course, going to go with Ting. On this side, we have the power connector, the HDMI, full-size HDMI, a DisplayPort, and 2 additional USB ports. Now, as some of you know, I voluntarily surrender one of my USB ports for the YubiKey. And of course, we have the headset jack too. Should not forget to mention that. One other thing that Lenovo does on their keyboards, and they have copied Apple in this regard, is they have the function key and the control key reversed, and I hate that. My finger naturally wants to go towards the control key at the bottom, and I end up hitting the function key. Now, the good news is, inside of the BIOS, Lenovo offers you an option to swap that off so that you can actually swap those two keys, but then, of course, they're mislabeled. So I've chosen to just work around it and learn to hit the control key rather than the function key when I'm using the computer. For better or for worse, I've decided to go with Ubuntu 16.04, and it works fairly well, except of course for these gigantic annoying bugs that Canonical still hasn't fixed on their LTS stable version that people will have for up to 5 years. Not the least of which is this annoying Wi-Fi problem that says I'm not connected to the Wi-Fi, but yet of course if we drop to a terminal and ping Google, of course we are connected to the internet. I just can't change networks without running this script, which I actually got from a viewer that rescans all of the Wi-Fi networks. Super annoying bug. Thanks to the NVMe drive, though, applications load very fast. As you can see here, I'm working on this exact review segment, and video editing on this thing, Skylake 6th Gen, even though it's Intel graphics, is amazing, and the applications are very responsive. And I've even managed to pull in some 4K video that I had from the drone last time I was in Washington, and that edits beautifully on this machine. The last thing I want to talk about is battery, and the battery in this thing is absolutely incredible. I've been using this non-stop all day, and I still have 38%. Now this has two batteries. The first is the optional 6-cell battery that I purchased that comes off the back, and of course it's dinging at me as I'm removing it, but this is the big brick that hangs off the back. They do have a flush mount one. Now you'll notice that the laptop stays on, and that's because inside there's actually an additional 3-cell battery that's built into the computer that'll give you about roughly 2 hours of use. Now I'm a battery hog. I like to live on my laptop. I take it with me everywhere I go, so I'm really thankful that Lenovo offers me the 6-cell battery choice. Now there has been a lot of discussion I've seen on the internet of people complaining about PC manufacturers not building bigger batteries into the laptops. Apple, for example, is essentially a gigantic battery with a laptop hanging off the back end, and a lot of people have been very critical of other PC manufacturers saying, well, why don't they do it that way? Why is it that we make the batteries in these big chunky cases that have to be put into the computer? Because of course, if you can put the battery cells right into the computer and not encase them in this big thick plastic, that's fine because there's no risk of them being punctured. But if they're going to be removable, you have to add a certain amount of thickness to the battery and the computer itself to encase the batteries. And I want to explain why I am really thankful that Lenovo has gone this route. I'm going to be taking a trip here in the next couple of weeks where I'm going to be on a plane for 13 plus hours and recharging my laptop. Some planes have the ability to provide charging inside of the plane, but it's going to be very nice for me to be able to take 2 or 3 of these external batteries and swap them as I'm in flight and I don't have access to power. Additionally, when I'm going out for even a weekend trip, to be able to just get on the airplane and go throughout the trip and not have to worry about stopping and charging back up, that's a real benefit. So I'm really thankful that I have the ability to swap those batteries out. I also don't mind the fact that it tilts the laptop up a little bit because there obviously the feet stick out, and so it tilts the laptop up. I actually like that. Some people don't. They do make a flat battery option if that's not for you. Overall, very pleased with the computer. Of course, as with reviewing any hardware, it'll take a couple weeks before I can tell you 100% things I like and don't like about it. But initial out-of-the-box impressions are a very good computer, a very good quality and value for the price I paid for it. Only thing I'm not very happy about is there is no guaranteed Linux support out of the box. You'd have to go to a higher end manufacturer like System 76. But for what it's worth, Reddit employees all use Thinkpad, so they must work pretty well with Linux.
Nice, they're nice. So I wanted to ask, I noticed a couple of follow-up questions in the chat room. So did you have a chance to try I think it has mini DisplayPort on that thing. Did you have a chance to try that out, and how did that work?
I did. I had a friend that has some sort of and I'm not is super up to date on how the whole DisplayPort thing works, but we had it set up so you could connect 2 individual monitors through that DisplayPort, and that worked. Yeah, it worked great.
Nice.
The other thing is, and I just want to give kind of a follow up. So Louis Rosman actually is kind of the guy that originally got me looking at the newer ThinkPads, and he has a YouTube channel where he basically shows you how to do component level repair stuff of ThinkPads. And he actually has my old 240 at the moment, and he was a nice guy. He actually he was working on it, and I asked him. I said, "Well, how much do I owe you?" And it had been like a month because I'm busy and I don't really have time to follow up with them all the time. And he goes, "Honestly, man, because you didn't bug me every 3 weeks or every week, ask me for an update, just pay for shipping." And so they actually fixed it for me for free.
Awesome.
Yeah. So super, super nice guy. If you want to learn how to fix computers at the component level stuff, Louis Rosman on YouTube, Rosman Repair Group. And of course, that's actually where I'm sending anytime I have a component level stuff I need repaired, he's the guy I go to. Super nice guy.
So that's on YouTube? That's a YouTube channel? Okay.
Yeah, he's on YouTube. Rosman Repair.
Rosman Repair. I guess just touching on the highlights, something I noticed there, you mentioned it had a SIM card in it, so you have GSM service in there, and that works okay under Linux?
It works under Linux and with Ting. So you just put the SIM card in. I get LTE, which I didn't get on the Ting hotspots. Like if you try and tether, it doesn't.
Right. And a couple of questions I had for you. Just one other quick one. It's got a Intel graphics card in it, right? It's Intel graphics, okay. And you mentioned it was Skylake i7 6600, 12.5 inches, not too small.
So it's 12.6. So it's their take on the 13-inch laptop, but they've scaled it down just a hair. I was a little concerned about it being too small, but honestly, with that 1080p display, it's just about right. That's about the right screen to resolution ratio that it works out fine. And I figure if I can edit video and I can do text at those are kind of two opposite.
And can you do more than 16 gigs of RAM?
I think it tops out at 16. Yeah, I think it maxes at 16.
That's like my XPS. And then my last question for you is: was that load time legit?
Yeah,
that was real. That load time you showed.
That was. I mean, there was no camera work there. That was. Yeah.
I wondered if you edited that.
What that is a Samsung 950 NVMe drive. So it is the fastest NVMe drive on the market, and of course made by Samsung.
I think the other one to compare this to, this X260, would probably be on the same line. Would probably be the Dell Sputnik XPS 13, which is also a very nice machine. So you use both of them next, kind of back to back. Which one did you walk away preferring?
The ThinkPad, but for only a couple of reasons. For one, I am totally out at this point on higher than 1080p resolution.
Yeah, so you can get the Sputnik with a 1080p to panel. Mine is the 4K because I was curious how Linux does on that, which is yeah.
I mean, it's great if you have applications that support scaling. Pad. It's fine, but then you run into these applications that don't, and then it's a total nightmare.
I'll tell you the feature I'm wondering, what about, so the XPS, where I was trying to get you to go with this is, it seems like one of the big differentiators, besides having the GSM SIM support if you need it, would be that removable battery. The fact that you can pop that battery off, and there's a 3-cell in the battery that keeps it running, and you can pop on a new battery. That's something the XPS can't touch.
So just in general, it's designed as more of a workhorse than a light power user type setup. So I'll give you an example. On the XPS, it presupposes that you are going to carry a power brick around with you and plug in wherever you are. And that's not the way I work. I have a dock at my office and I have a dock at my house. And so I sit down at work, I set my laptop in my dock, boom, my USB printer is connected, my speakers are connected, my 2 monitors are connected, my keyboard's connected, my mouse is connected, and my laptop's charging. When I need to go out on a service call, I hit the eject button, I walk out the front door, all my stuff is there on my actual computer. If I have to plug in, I can. Additionally, I purchased an external battery charger for the computer. So I have 3 batteries, and 2 of them sit at home and are just on a charger. So every morning, I just grab a fresh battery and swap them out. So I'm never down. I'm never tied down to I have to let my laptop charge. That's not a thing for me. Are
you able to disable or toggle the tap-to-click functionality of the trackpad?
Not only can you disable it in Linux, inside of the BIOS itself, I can disable tap to click. That's working fine under Linux. But as a step further, you can actually go into the BIOS and disable the clickpad, touchpad altogether.
Wow.
So you're just using the track point.
Wow, you must really appreciate that because that's a big thing for you. Now, last question: did you replace the wireless, or is it what it shipped with?
No, it's what it's shipped with. But I did check. Lenovo is no longer or at least this particular model is not whitelisted to a certain subset of cards, which my last computer was subject to. I tried to upgrade it to AC, and you try to start the computer, and it says not authorized wireless card, and you can't boot. And the only way to fix that is to desolder like this PCM, reprogram it, and then solder it back on. So basically, what I'm saying is you can't do it.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, and we would not tolerate that from any other manufacturer.
No,
they're no longer doing that.
I guess I lied. I had one more question for you, and this is sort of the big detractor for me in Lenovo. Is I don't think I trust Lenovo as a company. I mean, the stuff they did with Superfish, and there's been other things since Superfish. Like people have looked at the software for like their updates and stuff like that. It's bad stuff, and in some cases it enables man-in-the-middle attacks for SSL sessions. What are your thoughts around buying from Lenovo as a company?
So the customer experience is actually pretty bad. I'm a little tainted because I was back to back, with System 76, which has an amazing customer experience. So it's probably a little unfair to Lenovo. But so for example, I go into System 76, I make the I sign into my account and I place the order. Immediately, I get a confirmation. This is what you ordered. This is the ship date. This is what's happening. Right. And then I'm tracking everything that's happening.
And there's like a thread you can even have a conversation about it.
And I did. I asked them questions, and we're going back and forth. So fast forward to Lenovo, I go and place the order, and I don't even get a confirmation. I don't even know if the computer's ordered. In fact, I'm trying to confirm that I've ordered it, and I can't figure it out. I see it on my bank account before it actually shows up in like the little Lenovo track your thing portal session. Okay, fine, not a big deal, but kind of took away from my oomph of buying a new laptop. So then I'm looking, and I'm like, well, when's the thing's going to ship? 13 days.
Oh.
It's going to take 13 days for one of the largest PC manufacturers in the world to assemble a laptop and ship it to me.
And how heavily did you customize the laptop, or is it pretty much a stock order?
Pretty heavily.
Okay, that adds the delay.
But I customized it with more RAM and a hard drive. That should take about 45 seconds for them to install.
That's pretty common,
slap the RAM in, slap the thing.
That's got to be a super common upgrade, too.
Okay, so fine. All right. So it's going to take 13 days. Not a huge deal, and they beat it by a day, so I guess I'm not. So I'm tracking it as I'm watching this stupid green line go. Okay, fine. Finally, it ships. I'm like, oh, great. So now I'll have it in a day, right? Because I paid for expedited shipping. No, because it ships from Shenzhou, China.
Right.
So the UPS World posted from China, and I'm watching this package fly all the way around the world and eventually come into Alaska and then all these UPS hubs. And then it hits bad weather. So it actually missed the expected delivery. Well, I went to UPS and banged on the door, and I'm like, give me my laptop. But just the customer, and at no time was I ever contacted by Lenovo and said, if you have any questions or if you have any concerns. And again, I can't stress this enough. The entire time I'm thinking to myself, geez, I spent $1,600. I sure hope I can get Linux to work on it because I'm not using anything else. And it just, you don't know. It's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's good that you tried it. So if people want to know, they can refer to this. And maybe we'll check back in down the road and see how it's working for you. But it seemed like a pretty nice computer, and often a frequently requested piece of hardware. There's several people in our chat room that are apparently using it too.
I think the thing I'm most excited for is the fact that the longevity is going to last a very long time.
The longevity is
10
long.
10 years down the road, there'll be still people who will be interested.
So what you're saying, it has long longevity that lasts. Long longevity that lasts is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Very long.
I got that.
Yeah.
You know,
speaking of that longevity, while encrypting.
Speaking of that longevity, we should give away one of those things. Are you ready to do it?
I was thinking so.
All right. Well, that wraps up Linux Action Show's look at the ThinkPad X260. Now, let's go do some feedback. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. Before we go out of here, before we wrap it up for Father's Day, we want to give a laptop away. And first, speaking of laptops, I want to thank System 76 for making great machines that are designed to run Linux, which solve a lot of problems. If you want a bulletproof solution for when you need to reload your computer, if you want a support system, System76.com. Powerful computers, they always want to help you do more. System 76 also, besides laptops, has killer desktops. Great machines, modern technology, from tiny rigs to huge high-end workstations. Then they have laptops ranging from 14 inches up to 17 inches, massive desktop replacements. And not a lot of people know this. I think a lot of people mistakenly think that these machines are assembled in Where was yours assembled, Noah? Singapore?
Shenzhen, China.
Yeah, Shenzhen, China. These are assembled here in the US of A. Now, some of the parts are sourced from outside the country, sure. But System 76 actually has 2 different locations in the United States of America where they assemble the machines and then ship them to you. Desktops and laptops built to run Linux with a company and a community behind it. Go over to system76.com and get a machine designed to run Linux. Stop fighting with your hardware, and you get to play with your Linux. System76.com. Okay, Noah, so before we roll, let's wrap it up with a giveaway. Tell the folks about the machine we're giving away today. You ready for this?
So this is it. So I'm a ThinkPad nut. I started way in my early days with the 755Cs. It was a big old brick, one of the
back in the
very
day.
much one of the first ThinkPads that IBM made. And I love ThinkPads all the way up until they got sold to Lenovo, and then I kind of fell off the bandwagon for a little bit, and eventually came back over to them, but it took me a little bit. So this is an original. This is still when the company was owned by IBM. They were still making them, and at the time there was a time in like the early 90s. Late 80s, early 90s, where the ThinkPad was just the laptop to have. If you were a business owner, you had a ThinkPad. And this has it. When I booted it up too, and I saw this, it was a funny thing. The ThinkPads had this weird quirk where the track point would recalibrate itself sometimes. So if you're using it, all of a sudden the mouse would just start tracking up the corner of the screen, and then it would and you just take your hands off, and it would stop. And then you'd go back and then do your work. And this particular computer is plagued by that very traditional bug that really, if you were a ThinkPad guy, you love it.
So this is a rockin' 1.73 gigahertz processor. It's the Pentium M, 2 gigabytes of RAM, and 80 gigabyte hard drive with a DVD optical drive. We are officially opening up the phone lines to the chat room right now. If you are our 7th caller into the show, we will be giving away that very laptop that Noah just described. I think if you are someone who thinks a nice, rock-solid workhorse that runs Linux well enough, and, in Noah's case, run an i3, this might just be the machine for you. You don't need a Chromebook.
Xmonad.
Oh, yeah? Oh, really? Xmonad.
Yeah, I wasn't using i3.
What'd you think? What'd you think of Xmonad?
I loved it. The thing is, Xmonad is, and I know I'm not going to convince you of this over the air, but Xmonad is that, you know how you feel about me with syncing? That's how I feel about you with productivity with Xmonad. If once you get in, once you buy into it, you're like, oh, I can get my work done this way, you'll never go back.
Boom, boom,
it is such an efficient way to get things done, especially on multi-monitor.
Well, so are you going to leave it loaded? How are you going to ship this thing when the?
I'll ship it however the person wants.
Okay.
By default, I would suggest, if I was making a suggestion for you, I would suggest a nice stable operating system like Ubuntu 16.04.
That's what's on there right now, right? Is Ubuntu 16.04? Yeah. Now you can load snaps. Okay, so we told the chat room that if they were the 7th caller, they could call in. So in the meantime, it looks like we have our first caller on the line. I don't know if that's caller number 7 or caller number 1, but we got a caller on the line. So we'll start going through the call list, find caller number 7, and bring them in. Are you ready? All right.
I'm ready to roll.
All right, I'm going to dial up our first one here. I don't know if this is number 7 or here, I'll ask Ham. Hey Ham or hey Ham. Hey Ham. Is that number 7 or number 1?
When you were like,
remember that?
When you put them in.
Remember when I mentioned that earlier? And I was like, hey, let's make sure we label it right. Yeah. I know, but there's a lot going on.
It's probably not 7. That's probly why I didn't say that.
Yeah, probably. All right.
Okay. It wasn't 7.
Okay, so I'm going to call that lineup. We'll just find out right now. Are you excited? We'll ask the caller number 7. This is no good. Okay. All right. No, he's caller number 2. He's caller number 2. Hello, caller. Welcome to the Linux Action Show. You probably sound like a robot, don't you? Go ahead and say something.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Hey, it's good. You sound like a robot. We're good. This audio
Jalen in the chat.
Well, thank you for calling in. Sorry you're not number 7. I'm going to hang up on you, though, because you sound like a robot.
See, we use Linux on this show, so things don't work all the time.
Hold on, Noah. You vamp for a second while I unplug the audio interface.
So,
I'm just gonna unplug real
we
quick.
do all of our production under Linux because we believe it is a superior operating system. And
Yeah.
often when you're using superior operating systems, you run into inferior problems. Like
Now I
running-
gotta close the program and reassign my audio interface really quick, and then I'll relaunch the program so I can continue to take calls.
This is so professional.
All right.
You too can have a laptop that runs.
So
some music.
caller number 6 is calling in right now. Let's bring in caller number 6. Are you ready? Caller number 6 is calling in right now. Let's bring them in. I think I fixed. Nope, it's still robot. Hello, caller number.
Hello, yeah.
we might just need to restart the box if you could just give us a couple.
You were so close, Mr. Lou. I'm sorry, but at least you came on the show and you trolled us sounding like a robot. So you got that. So thank you for calling in. All right, so Noah, we need to have a little conference here on recommendations on how I can fix the sound interface. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, here's my suggestion. My suggestion is I better go to Amazon and buy you a good sound interface.
I say Boulder Dash.
All right, so we got caller number 7 is calling in right now. This is super exciting, Noah. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay,
I'm ready.
so hold on. Let's build the tension. Okay, so I'm going to try one more time restarting the audio interface.
Well, while he's doing that, the thing is, like, we were at this music store, and we're on the way out to Linux Fest like last year, and I'm looking at the cabinet, and I'm like, oh, you have it is and who makes that thing? It's
yeah, it's an alpha. All right, so I did the suspense music, so I could. Okay, you could. Okay, I'll finish your story real quick, and then we'll bring in our caller number 7.
Well, that's fine. We bring in 7.
So we picked up this thing on a whim, and it turns out that might have been a bit of a mistake. All right, so calling in. Well, hold on. We got one more caller before we'll get to number 7. You ready? We have one more person.
Okay, all right.
Still sounds like Hello, caller number 6, or whatever you are. Thank you for calling into the show. Who is this?
This is Herb Miller Jr.
Hello, sir. Well, you sound. We can make you out. Go ahead.
Did you say caller number 6?
I'm not sure which caller. I think you're actually
Okay.
caller number 8. You're actually caller number 8, unfortunately. I just danced around caller number 7 to build the anticipation and try to fix the machine.
Okay, because Sam told me 10.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, jeez.
This has gone completely off the rails.
And on top of that, my fan just fell out of the window and almost knocked over my lights. All right. Let's just end this train. Let's just call it our winner. All right. Caller number. Here we go. Caller number 7. Anthony, are you there?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, sir. Guess what? Congratulations. You are our winner. I don't know why you sound like a robot, but you are definitely the winner of the gently loved ThinkPad. And I assume, are you on Telegram, Anthony?
Telegram? No, I'm
Okay.
not.
All right. Well, you'll have to email Noah then to work out the details. Noah@JupiterBroadcasting.com. I'm glad you're able to get a connection in. I don't know why you sound like a robot, but you guys might remember Anthony was on a episode of Linux Unplugged a while back. So congratulations, sir, and thank you for making it through the call list. I appreciate
That
it.
was fun.
All right. You get in touch with Noah now, okay?
Noah@JupiterBroadcasting.com.
Yeah, there
Or
you go.
You could sign up for Telegram. It's an amazing experience. It'll change your life.
Jeez, I'll let you go so you don't have to hear that anymore. All right,
It'll
and
fix
then
your audio interface problems.
let's polish it off with one more. Let's talk to one more robot from the chat room. You know what this is making me think? The chat room's full of bots. Maybe it's not the audio interface. Maybe it's.
Maybe we don't have a real audience.
Yeah. Hello, Jim. Are you there?
J-Lib, yep.
Jay. Oh, hello, sir. Welcome. Thank you for calling. What's on your mind?
Oh, who's this, Chris?
Yeah. This is. Yeah. Do I sound like a robot to you too?
No.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, I've been watching you guys for, over 3 years and love your show and love all the things you do.
Thank you. If I believe robots had emotion, that would mean something to me. But since I don't believe,
That's him.
I know, I'm just kidding. I love it. Thank you, sir. Thank you for calling in, and have a good one. We'll get that audio fixed up for next week real soon here, Noah, because that is a bit of a train wreck. Just the worst giveaway ever. I can't believe it. And I can't believe my fan fell down out of the window in the middle of it all, too. It's horrible. Oh, there we go. See, there goes the fan. The fan just... All right. Well, if you would like to contribute to the show, I'm not sure why you would, but linuxactionshow.reddit.com. That's where you go. You can also give us feedback there. We'll have a thread just for this episode. If you want to send us some email, you go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact. If you want to contact us on Twitter, I'm at ChrisLAS. He's at Kernel Linux over there and at Jupiter Signal for the network announcement. Why don't you join us live so you can participate directly in the train wreck at jblive.tv, and jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar will convert it to your local time. Anything else that we need to cover, Noah?
At least we're using Linux. At least we're using Linux. Give us credit. We're using Linux. We get a couple problems, but we just solve it so that not to lexicon. That's what it is. Lexicon Alpha. So usually, not to use the Lexicon Alpha because you'll sound like a robot. Usually,
that unplug and replug the audio interface solves it. But I think when there's
not on the air doing a show.
Yeah. Well, no, I have actually before. It's not the first time I've had to do that, trust me. I got that maneuver down. That's why I have a GNOME extension. So I can change the audio interface on the fly.
Are you serious?
I do really. Yeah, here, I'll show you. Okay, so look. So this is actually really great. So I have
That's not great. The fact that you have a GNOME extension.
See right there, I have all my different. Look at that. Right there under that menu, I have all my different audio interfaces right there. Boom. So it just takes care of it for me.
What a mess.
Problem solved, dude.
What a mess.
Problem solved. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. I will see you right back here next week. You got enough room in your, can you fit a 40-foot RV in your front yard?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can fit in my driveway.
All right. Well, there you go. You don't mind, right?
Actually, I really wouldn't care. I don't care. As long as I can get my car in and out of the driveway, I could care less what else is in the driveway.
So you have Arch on this thing?
No.
Really? What did you put on that?
What do you think I put on it?
Ubuntu? Okay.
Hey, you'd be happy to know the machine that is dedicated to Jupiter Broadcasting sitting right in front of me is running Arche. Targos.
Okay, so now I don't really have a good way to pitch it. Let's see. Because I'm going to talk about using like a good modern distro on there or something.
1604, man.
Yeah. Well, at least you can install snaps on it. No, I'm just teasing. Yeah, so Windows Surface. Yes. We'll be giving away a Surface RT. It only runs Windows RT, but probably use Microsoft Edge. What are we not talking about the show right now? We're not talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Okay.
No, we're talking about the show.
Focus.
There's people in the chat room that are having trouble trying to call in, and I'm like,
oh, are they? Is that because they're not using phones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking about ways I could fix it, and then I decided that's
guys. Here's the thing.
Time to do that.
If collectively as a group, and I'm not talking about you, babe. I'm you out there in the chat room. I'm not talking about you. I know you always do it right, but you see everybody else, they fuck it up all the time. They always leave their stream going when they call in. They don't have their mic set up properly. They have speakers going with their microphone, so there's echo back. You see, they're just a bunch of screw-ups constantly, and so we have to use the phone because it turns out the phone just works, and if they're on the phone and they can quickly mute their computer, it solves our problem. So I'm telling you, from me to you, if collectively you could all get your shit together on this particular problem, we wouldn't use the phone system because it's costing no money. Here's the thing, though. 10 years into this, guys, real talk, okay? 10 years into this. 10 years into this. Y'all haven't gotten it figured out yet. I'm not saying. I know you got other things to do. You're busy. See, so I don't judge you. I know you got you. I know you. If it was the only thing you had to do, you'd have it nailed. I know that. I believe that. Here's the thing. You just don't have the time to nail it down. It's been 10 years. I've waited for you to get it right. Hasn't happened yet. I'm sorry. I love you. But it's just the truth. I'm just telling you the truth. I just want to make the internet great again. I want to make it great.
You're a smart person, so I feel like it's a failure on my part as a communicator. And if I could just explain it to you with small, simple words, you would understand.